picture too?
It's a video actually.
Okay.
Yes. Can I have your name for the record, please?
Sure. Binyamin Biber.
Where do you work?
I work at American University as the humanist chaplain there.
And do you briefly remember how we got to meet?
I do. Well, you rang me up after being referred to me by the American Humanist Association staff, which is great because I mostly work with students who are in their late teens and early 20s. Some graduate students are older than that, but that's mostly the people I work with, so it's a perfect way to connect.
I guess you're right. That is how we met. And can you briefly describe your responsibilities as the chaplain at American University?
Sure. So most of what I do at American University is working with students on regular weekly events. We have mostly speakers coming to talk with us about books they write and projects they're working on. And then we also have topical discussions on everything from current affairs to personal issues, like coming out to your family as a non-religious person if you come from a religious family.
Yes, we did talk about that.
Yeah, and that's a big part of what I do with students on a weekly basis. We also do special events where we might have a party, or we might go lobby Congress. That's coming up next week. We might go have a demonstration at the Supreme Court. Say we're on the Hobby Lobby case around marriage equality. We've gone to events together like the Sunday Assembly, which, in fact, our last speaker this previous Tuesday was the main organizer for Sunday Assembly DC, and so a bunch of the students have gone down to Sunday Assembly events together, which includes the regular Sunday kind of events that are like speaker, poetry, music, as well as their community service activities, which we've done some of that. So it's a whole range of things, and we've gone to the conferences of the American Humanist Association, and then some of them have gone together to the conferences of the Secular Student Alliance, and so on. And then I also counsel students who are going through some difficulties. One student's father died this last year. Another student was having difficulty with a woman he was dating. She was religious and he's not. That can be a challenge. Just the stresses of being a student sometimes. A lot of big workload. It's very stressful. Any number of things, like what am I going to do with my life? Those kinds of things. So that's what chaplains in general do. And I do similar things, but as a humanist.
And just to be clear, I'm going to come back on what you just said right now, but you are a non-religious chaplain.
I'm a non-religious chaplain, and I serve the main focus of my chaplaincy at the university is working with non-religious students.
And how would you say people react when, for example, someone comes out as a non-religious person?
It varies quite a bit. It's not at all unusual in this country particularly, for younger people to be less religious than their parents or grandparents. I think there's and I would have to say that people of my students' parents' generation, many of them are less religious than their parents were.
Yes,
so
there's a generational gap.
There's a trend, exactly.
Yes.
There's a trend in the culture towards reduced identification and affiliation and participation in religious organizations and movements. But that said, there are still some number of students who experience some difficulty in, we use the phrase coming out to their families as a non-religious person. And that is typically most difficult for students who come from religious families. more traditionally religious families. So, for example, our president a couple of years back was a young Iranian American woman. Her family had emigrated from Iran and come to the United States, and her family was religious, although more maybe modern than some, but they were still, her mother particularly was fairly religious, and mother would pray that she would come back to the way and all that, and needless to say, that was difficult and stressful for both her, the student, and her mom. And so we talked about how to communicate, in a best way with her mom, and reassure her mom that she's, there are valuable lessons that she drew from her religious upbringing, that how to be a good person and respect others and be honest and all that, and be a good member of the family, while at the same time being an atheist. And so she, interestingly, I call myself a humanistic Jew because I grew up Jewish, and she calls herself a humanistic Muslim. Because she sees something of value in some of the elements of the tradition, art and music and poetry, some of the teachings and ideas, but she just doesn't, she sees that they're all invented by people, and so she value the good ideas as the good ideas of people, and the bad ideas and actions as the bad ideas and actions of people. Kind of obvious, but
Going back on what's invented and what's not invented, for example, let's talk about Mormonism a bit.
Talk about
Mormonism a bit.
Mormonism?
Yes.
Not something I know a lot about, but what would you like to talk about?
I mean, it's funny because I was just watching...
I dated a Mormon woman a long time ago.
Did you?
I did.
Because...
I should say she was an ex-Mormon.
Okay, because... it seems to me that for most religion, this one was the recently invented.
Well, that's true, and
yes.
so it's more obvious.
Yes, it's more obvious in terms of like.
And there's actually quite a number of religions.
And it's from Missouri too. Joseph Smith was from Missouri, like
sure.
the inventor too.
Well, yeah. So we know about Mormonism and a few other religions that developed in more recent times.
All claiming to have been based from the Bible.
Sure.
So like...
Or the Bible, or divine revelation, or such things. Yeah.
Yes, so, and we also know a few things about the Bible too. It's not quite true, because in the sense that like, it was recounted afterwards, and Jesus never wrote anything down. It's not like Jesus said, I was born in Bethlehem. Right. Yes. Right. It's not like he just was born in Bethlehem, then I went here, then I went there. It's all like a word of mouth kind of thing.
Oh yeah, no, we have nothing that Jesus himself actually wrote, and anything that it's attributed to him as his speech is, are reports decades and even centuries later. So it's folklore. It's folklore, and
so we can. So it's not a reliable source to go to in terms of like how the world is created.
That it's not a record of his life from like a historical contemporary to his time. If nobody was writing like, so then Jesus went to lunch, or
Yes,
or,
and we also have like
said, hey, Jesus, remember to brush your teeth. I mean, I just came to the dentist, so but that's the problem with many of these very old traditions, is that of course many of them are developing